Hi, my name is Michelle Mills-Porter, and I'd like to share with you my hints and tips on confident communication. So, I am the people reader, and I'm so called because of my expertise in understanding human behaviour and the way that we communicate. This is one of my favourite sayings by the great Nelson Mandela. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to a man in his language, that goes to his heart. And even if we are all speaking English or Burmese or Japanese or Italian or whatever it may be, we still speak slightly different languages according to our kind of behaviour. So some people use much more effusive language and other people don't. And we can actually build rapport on a subconscious level if we match that. And so what I'm going to share with you is not rocket science. We all know this stuff, but I'm just going to point out the things that I believe are most important. So my background is that I started off with a book called Phone Genius, The Art of Non-Visual Communication. I was caught in the Boxing Day tsunami and I learned an awful lot about the behaviour of human beings, how we naturally are motivated and how wonderful we are in terms of adversity and how we come together as well. So I decided to learn everything that I could about behaviour profiling. I became a master behaviour profiler. And if you fast forward a couple of decades, I then wrote an entire suite of analysis tools that allow us to understand how to build rapport with each other and how to progress ourselves. So let me show you what I'm going to share with you today. The first thing is I'm going to show you the difference between our voice, whether we are face-to-face or whether we are on an electronic platform. Then I'm going to go through some essential aspects of virtual communication. Then I'm going to talk about handshakes and how they are different, whether they are face-to-face or in the virtual world. Then I'm going to talk about some ways to build great relationships, and again, 5 tips there. And then finally, I'm going to give you a gift. So let's start. The difference between our voice in a face-to-face situation is we get the analog version of that. The second that we speak on the phone or on video or over any virtual platform is that our voice is turned into a digital version in order to transport it. For the other person to understand it, it then has to be transferred again back into analog. But in order to do that, it only has the digital version in order to work from. That digital version will miss a lot of your personality. And I'm talking about the inflections and all the curvaceous aspects of your voice. Therefore, in order to build rapport with people, we need to put more inflections and, in essence, more personality into our voice. First of all, making sure that we use the embouchure of our mouth and enunciate better. Secondly, to put light and shade into our voice, sometimes sounding excitable and sometimes sounding very serious. And in order to build rapport, when we want people to understand that what we're saying is very important, or when we're negotiating and talking about prices, to go down in depth is much more authoritative. There's a couple of hints and tips. Let's talk about the things that I think are most important in terms of virtual communication. First of all, the tech is very important. So our connection is something we can't always do an awful lot with. But if we can, then sometimes we can increase our bandwidth, whether that's by stopping our video or stopping things that are running in the background. It can increase the ability for us to have a bigger broadband to play with. Our lighting and sound is important, but you'll see that even on my video, this isn't perfect. I'm not using a green screen because I'm sharing slides with you. So that's my choice. It does mean there is a slight fuzzy edge around my head and you can't quite see how tall my hair is. However, the content is the most important thing. And for me, an authentic background is actually much more valuable than somebody showing me they're in a glossy hotel with lots of expensive things behind them when I know that it's just a virtual background. Eye contact is very important. And you'll notice that I'm actually looking straight down the camera. The reason I'm doing that is because it's the only way to make it look like I'm engaging with you. If I start reading my screens, or I start looking around at all the faces that are on the screen thinking that I'm building rapport with you, I'll be wrong. The only place to build rapport and make it feel like I'm engaging with you is straight down the camera. And so therefore, even though we can see each other, this is more like non-visual communication than it is visual, because I can't see the expressions on your face. We covered voice patterns a minute ago, and again, voice patterns are really important for building rapport and for keeping people engaged. So let's make sure that we try and inject a little bit more personality and give people something to actually relate to when we're speaking. Body language is important. And even though we're quite used to using our body language positively in a face-to-face environment, we may not be in a virtual environment. I feel like I'm pinned to the spot at the moment, because if I move around too much, the outside of my image will fade and that will break rapport with you. So I'm having to be fairly still. If I'm sitting at my desk at the moment, and one of the key things that we tend to do when we're sitting at the desk is to lean on our elbows. If we lean on our elbows, that might be comfortable, but inevitably we will start to rest on our elbow. If we do that, we can start to look bored or tired or disengaged. So just be aware of it. Flailing our hands around can be problematic. First of all, because it can certainly muck up the background, and sometimes you can't see what I'm doing with my hands, and they'll go in and out of your visibility. And again, if I'm flailing my hands towards the camera, that may come across as aggressive. Even our shoulder shrugs can mean a lot, because when we only have a few body language communication tools to use in a virtual environment, they become much more important. The shoulder shrug should be used when it means it doesn't matter. But actually, if we use it throughout our talk, it looks like we don't believe in what we're saying. So just be aware. Head movements of all type can be very important. Tilting your head slightly looks like you're paying attention or engaged. And actually, your eye contact, if the person delivering can see it, it's really important that you look alert and that you nod your head when you agree with something, because it gives them confidence. Let's have a look at something else now. This is a picture that I'm going to credit to Dara Simpkin, because she shared this on LinkedIn training recently. And this is something that I love because it shows you some of those things that I was talking about. For instance, leaning on your hands can look like you're bored. Folding your arms can look like you're disinterested, but that can mean a number of things. So we have to be very careful when we're talking about body language. Let me give you an example. Touching the chin looks like, or should be read like, you're interested and you're thinking. However, when you cover your mouth, which is only a slight slip from one place to another, that means something entirely different. It usually means that you don't like what you're saying, or you don't believe what you're saying, almost like you're trying to stuff the words back in your mouth. So with body language, we have to be careful and we have to take it all into consideration. So this image of Barack Obama shows us 3 different kinds of body language. First of all, he's turning his head away slightly and his eyes are down. That can be disinterest. The second thing is his mouth is downturned, looking very disappointed. Again, that could look like disengagement. When you marry these up with folded arms, it most certainly must mean that he is disinterested in whatever he's speaking about, that any one of these elements taken on their own might mean something completely different. You may have seen Alistair Greener already. He's certainly a keynote speaker on this summit, and he gave me this slide to share. So the 5th point in terms of the essentials of virtual communication is a green screen, and this is a perfect example of when a green screen can go wrong. My rule of thumb is always show your authentic background if you can. And if it's dreadful and you don't want to, then maybe use slides like I'm doing at the moment. I'm using the slides to benefit you, not necessarily because my office is a mess. Let's have a look at handshakes. Now, how on earth can you handshake in a virtual environment? Well, every time you post on social media, especially with someone new, that is like a handshake. So if we liken the way that we shake hands to people in a face-to-face environment to the way that we communicate in a social environment, in a virtual environment, then we can make some similarities. Let me show you. This is the enthusiastic handshake. In a face-to-face environment, this person will charge across the room and make a beeline for you. Now, his intent may be that he comes across as genuine and interested. But actually, if you have a different behavior type to him, that may be perceived as somebody who is aggressive or almost certainly somebody who wants to sell you something. So how does that equate? Well, when we're in a virtual world, our words, the words that we use, can come across as extremely enthusiastic. That may build rapport with some people, but if they're the opposite behavior type, it will break rapport. So let's tailor the communication we use and make sure that there is enough enthusiasm in there to show that we're interested, but not so much that it scares people away. The second handshake I'm going to share with you is what I call the wet fish. The intent may be that this person is patient, kind, or gentle, but I don't know anyone that likes this kind of damp, limp handshake because it comes across as unsure, submissive, or even untrustworthy. The third one I'm going to share is what I call the princess, and that's because I'm not sure whether this person wants to shake my hand or kiss it. For me, this person may want to come across as being respectful or caring, but actually it comes across as disingenuous or having delusions of grandeur for some people. So they may feel that you think that you the other person is unworthy of shaking your hand. The final one I'm going to share with you is what I call the game player. Now, you may see this quite a lot in business terms. If your hand is on top rather than an equal handshake, that may come across as being dominant or aggressive or someone looking for a fight, whereas the intent may be that you want to appear masterful or authoritative or even open. If your hand, however, is underneath, that may come across as disingenuous, political, or sneaky. And actually, it may be intended that you want to show that you're charitable or willing to negotiate. Now, this might be a conscious thing or it might be a subconscious thing. There's no way of telling unless we piece it together, but it does give us an example of how other people can perceive us. Let me share 5 tools now on how to build rapport and build brilliant business relationships. So for me, the first thing I'm going to share with you is the way to experiment. And that is all about repeating back what people say. This is an experiment that was done many years ago. And it simply asked the waiters to either repeat back the order that they took before going to the kitchen, and for other waiters to not repeat back the order before going to the kitchen. This was measured in terms of tips. Who had the most tips? Well, you can probably guess the people that repeated back the order before going to the kitchen got far more tips than those that didn't. The only difference is that by repeating back what someone has said to you, it appears like you're really interested. And that also works in social situations. Try it. If you repeat back what people say, it just appears much more that you are listening and intent. The second thing is to smile. Even on the phone, the smile can change the shape of our face and it changes the way that our words come out. So not only should we use our mouth a lot, but if we smile, actually it makes people want to smile back as well, just the way it does in face-to-face situations. The third thing I'm going to share is to mirror the speed of speaking. So if you're talking to somebody that naturally speaks very slowly, then try and slow down the pace that you speak to try and build rapport with them. Don't try and make them join your speed. And equally, if they speak very fast, then try and increase your speed of speaking, and that will build rapport on a subconscious level. The second way to build rapport with just our voice alone is in terms of volume. So if somebody speaks very quietly, try and adjust your volume to match theirs, and you will build subconscious rapport. Or if they speak loudly, try and increase your volume to build rapport on a subconscious level. The last tip I'm going to do is something that you probably do anyway, but this is to make sure that you do what you say you're going to do. That will build huge rapport with people because you're setting your stall out as being somebody who's trustworthy and somebody who will always do what they say they're going to do. So the last thing I'm going to do is share a gift with you. And what I would like to share is a free people reader analysis. If you have a prospect, somebody that is already warm, somebody that you've already started the negotiation process with, somebody that you've met face to face, somebody that you've emailed on various occasions, so you have an idea of the kind of words they use, would be ideal for this. If you want to convert them into a client, then a people reader analysis can help you do that. All you do is fill out the link I give you as if you're speaking about that person, and the instructions on the link are very clear. What you will get back is an astonishing amount of information in terms of how to build rapport with that person. There is nothing in there that could be classed as sneaky. It is all about building rapport and understanding what the other person wants and needs before they have to even ask for it. So all you have to do is just email me with the title Myanmar Summit, and I will send that through with my heartfelt thanks. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being engaged. See you soon.